This morning is from Mark chapter 12, verses 28 to 34. One of the scribes came near and heard them disputing with one another. And seeing that he answered them well, he asked him, "Which commandment is the first of all?" Jesus answered, "The first is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." Then the scribe said to him, "You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one and beside him there is no other, and to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. This is much more important than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices." When Jesus saw that he answered wisely, he said to him, "You are not far from the realm of God." After that, no one dared to ask him any question.
Thank you, Ruth. Diane hid her deep pain and suffering from those around her. You see, in the weeks and months following her husband's cancer diagnosis, Diane would search for hiding places where she could let the tears just flow from her eyes. Closet was a favorite place, and sometimes a shower. And after her husband died, expressing her grief in parking lots away from everyone else became Diane's go-to. She felt as if she was sheltering or shielding her children and her family, but at what cost to herself? One day, however, everything changed. You see, she was about to place her order in a coffee drive-thru when suddenly a wave of sadness hit her. "I could barely catch my breath," she said, and the ugly crying started. The problem is I was stuck in that coffee line. Now, this particular coffee shop was a place where all the workers were young and happy and jamming out to music while they were serving coffee. So you can imagine the scene. Some bouncy 20-somethings bopping around serving coffee, and then this middle-aged woman pulls up to the window full on bawling. Now, one would think that they would be so uncomfortable that they'd want to get her out of there as soon as possible. But that's not what happened. Instead, the barista at the window handed Diana an iced coffee with a sweet but simple note scribed on the top. "We love you. We love you." Now, this girl didn't know Diana's story, but she did know that she was in pain. And whether she knew it or not, this young woman, this barista, was a living reflection of the text that we have before us this morning. The first and greatest commandment: love God and love neighbor. It's a concept that actually comes to us directly from the Hebrew Scriptures, and it's the core of the teaching within and beyond the New Testament. As a matter of fact, we can find it articulated in all four Gospels, and it lies at the very heart of Paul's theology. One could easily say that loving God and neighbor is the foundation of Jesus' teachings because it gets to the very heart of the nature of God. But what is God's nature? In other words, what's God really like? Well, overwhelmingly, we see a portrayal of God in the Bible that's multidimensional. But far too often, I think we as human beings sell God short. We try to create a God maybe in our own image, a God that's one-dimensional, a God that's this or that, and that's it, as if we as human beings could somehow box God in. But what if we were to choose a different way of viewing God, one that's not monolithic? Might then our imaginations be activated and our creativity enlivened as we contemplate the nature of God? I mean, if we acknowledge that we cannot possibly know everything there is to know about God, then we're freed up to use our imagination and our creativity to explore what we can know about God. But what can we know about God? That's the $64,000 question. What can we know? Well, I think we can identify three aspects or virtues of God, things that we can wrap our minds around. First is that God is the source of life, the creator. Now, by source of life, I mean that which indwells all living things, that which interconnects all living things, that which enhances all living things. So if God is the source of life, then the only way we can honor God is by living, right? By living fully, by living faithfully, by living authentically. My friends, the more we can be our deepest, most authentic selves and let others be their most authentic selves, the more our lives will reveal that which is real, that which is sacred. The more fully we live our lives, the greater opportunity that we can connect to the source of life. That's the first thing, and the second one is this. The second thing that we can know about God is that God is the ground of our being. What do I mean by that? Well, if God can be understood not as an angry judge keeping score or some old man sitting in the clouds, but rather as the ground in which all living things are rooted, then the way we honor God is by finding the courage to be all that we can be, and by allowing others and encouraging them to be all that they can be. And the ground of the being all that we can be includes, on the deepest and most profound level, loving God by loving our neighbor. And that, I think, takes us to the third virtue of God, and back to our original question about the nature of God. God is the source of love. In the first letter to John, the first epistle to John, he's very clear in saying that God is love. God is love itself. Yes, God is loving, but God is love. So God as the source of love is God's nature expressed through a love that flows around and through and within all life. And it's a love that always affirms, because that's what love does. It affirms. It doesn't demean. So the way we honor God as the source of love is by living a loving life, by loving from the very fabric of our being, by loving without expecting anything in return, by loving those whom society has deemed unlovable. I thought, trying to think of a way to illustrate this, and I came up with the idea of a quilt. I want all of you to imagine for a second your favorite quilt. Maybe it's a quilt that hung on the wall somewhere, or maybe it was on Grandma's bed, but think about that quilt. If you were to think of the world as that quilt, and all that is in it, love, and our hymn of response today is, sorry. Anyway, back to the quilt. So think about that quilt again. If you were thinking of everything in the world as that beautiful quilt that you see laying on Grandma's bed, love would be the thread that holds it all together. Without love, we would be nothing more than a bunch of random patches of cloth, disconnected from one another, disconnected from God. When that barista scribed that note, that was a thread connecting one human being to the next, a thread connecting one suffering person to God. And this is what Jesus was driving at, I think, when he said the greatest commandment of all is to love God and love our neighbor. I mean, he had 600 odd some ones to choose from in the Old Testament, right? There's a lot of laws. He didn't say washing your hands the right way was the greatest commandment of all. He said the greatest commandment of all is to love God with all of your being and to love your neighbor as yourself. He was telling his followers back then, and us still today, the most profound way that we can be in relationship with God is when we love one another and when we love deeply. When we love without barter or expectation. When we love without receiving anything in return. And I want to leave you with something today. I'm going to leave you with a poem. Now, this poem has an unknown author, but I think it really touches on our theme today. It's called Love is a Waste of Time. Love is a waste of time. Love is a waste of time. The best possible waste. An extravagant gift with no guarantees, no measures of success, and a great deal of risk. Love is a waste of time that we all want to have too much of, running over, flowing freely, wasted on us. Love is a waste of time, but still, I hope it's wasted on me. May it be so for you and for me. Amen, and God's people said, Amen.